In a small desert village surrounded by endless sand and silence, lived a 3-year-old boy named Sami. Unlike the other children who ran through the streets playing games, Sami spent most of his time near the old wheat barn where his father worked. This barn held the village's entire food supply, the grain that fed every family during the harsh desert months. Sami loved observing things, the way sand shifted with wind, the sound of crates settling, and how even footprints changed their shape by evening. His father often said, "Sami sees what others forget to notice," though he meant it as a gentle joke. One evening, just as the sun dipped behind the dunes, Sami noticed something unusual near the barn. The sand outside the door was disturbed, not by villagers' feet, but by deep camel prints, pressed as if the animals carried heavy loads. Close to those were sharp boot marks unlike anything he had seen in the village. Sami knelt, running his fingers over the prints, observing the direction and weight. A sense of warning filled his chest. He followed the marks a little way, and saw they circled the barn before vanishing into the darkness of the desert. He hurried home and told his father, who listened patiently but dismissed his worry. "Thieves don't come this far," he said. "There's nothing out here but sand and wind." The villagers believed the same. They had lived peacefully for generations, far from any road where danger traveled. But Sami's instincts would not calm. As night covered the village, he lay awake, replaying the strange prints in his mind. After struggling with the feeling, he quietly slipped out of the house, wrapped in a shawl, and walked toward the barn under the pale moonlight. He hid behind large clay pots beside the wall and waited. The night was cold, and the silence felt too heavy. After what seemed like hours, faint voices appeared. 3 shadowy figures moved toward the barn cautiously. Their clothing was rugged, their boots dusty, and knives hung from their belts. Sami's heart pounded as he realized they were desert thieves, the kind who attacked travelers and vanished before sunrise. He remained perfectly still, watching them examine the lock on the barn door. "It's strong," one thief whispered. "We break it when the moon hides," their leader replied. Sami felt fear tightening around him. If they stole the wheat, the entire village would starve. Crying for help was pointless. No one would hear him in time. He forced himself to think clearly. As he watched, he noticed the thieves were tired, one limping badly, another checking a nearly empty water skin. Their camels, tied behind them, looked restless and thirsty. That detail struck Sami like a spark. In the desert, water was life, and no one could travel far without it. He carefully crawled away and headed toward the village well, a short distance away. Acting quickly, he pushed the wooden covering so it looked broken and spilled water from nearby pots to create wet patches in the sand. From afar, it would seem like the well had collapsed or dried out. Then he hid behind a cluster of rocks, holding his breath. Minutes later, the thieves emerged from the barn carrying stolen grain. When they reached the well, they froze in panic. "The well is broken," one shouted. "There's no water left," yelled another. "We can't cross the desert like this." Before they could think further, Sami threw his lantern far into the darkness. It shattered with a bright flash. He then shouted in a deep, disguised voice, "Stop! You're surrounded!" The thieves, already exhausted and terrified, didn't wait to confirm. They abandoned the stolen grain, jumped onto their camels, and fled into the dunes as fast as they could. Sami stayed hidden until the silhouettes disappeared completely. At sunrise, villagers found the stolen wheat near the well and were shocked. When Sami bravely shared the entire story, the footprints, the thieves, the dried well trick, and the lantern flash, the villagers were stunned. An elder placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You saved all of us. Wisdom and courage together can live in the smallest of us."